the Sixth Patriarch's Dharma Jewel Platform Sutra. Published and translated by Buddhist Text Translation Society 1777, Murchison Drive, Burlingame, California 94010-4504. Copyright 2001 Buddhist Text Translation Society Dharma Realm Buddhist University Dharma Realm Buddhist Association 1st edition, Hong Kong, 1971 2nd edition, USA, 1977 3rd edition, USA, 2001. Chapter 2. Prajna. The following day, at the invitation of Magistrate Wei the Master took his seat and said to the great assembly, "All of you purify your minds and think about MahaPrajna Paramita." He then said, "Good knowing advisors, the wisdom of Bodhi and Prajna is originally possessed by worldly people themselves. It is only because their minds are confused that they are unable to enlighten themselves and must rely on a great good knowing advisor who can lead them to see their Buddha nature. You should know that the Buddha nature of stupid and wise people is basically not different. It is only because confusion and enlightenment are different that some are stupid and some are wise. I will now explain for you the Maha Prajna Paramita Dharma in order that each of you may become wise. Pay careful attention, and I will explain it to you. Good knowing advisors, worldly people recite prajna with their mouths all day long and yet do not recognize the prajna of their self-nature. Just as talking about food will not make you full, so, too, if you only speak of emptiness you will not see your own nature in 10,000 ages. In the end you will not have obtained any benefit. Good knowing advisors, Maha Prajna Paramita is a Sanskrit word which means great wisdom which has arrived at the other shore. It must be practiced in the mind, and not just recited in words. When the mouth recites and the mind does not practice, it is like an illusion, a transformation, dewdrops, or lightning. However, when the mouth recites and the mind practices, then mind and mouth are in mutual accord. One's own original nature is Buddha, apart from the nature there is no other Buddha. What is meant by Maha? Maha means great. The capacity of the mind is vast and great like empty space, and has no boundaries. It is not square or round, great or small. Neither is it blue, yellow, red or white. It is not above or below, or long or short. It is without anger, without joy, without right, without wrong, without good, without evil, and it has no head or tail. All Buddha lands are ultimately the same as empty space. The wonderful nature of worldly people is originally empty, and there is not a single dharma which can be obtained. The true emptiness of the self-nature is also like this. Good knowing advisors, do not listen to my explanation of emptiness and then become attached to emptiness. The most important thing is to avoid becoming attached to emptiness. If you sit still with an empty mind you will become attached to undifferentiated emptiness. Good knowing advisors, the emptiness of the universe is able to contain the forms and shapes of the 10,000 things, the sun, moon, and stars, the mountains, rivers, and the great earth, the fountains, springs, streams, torrents, grasses, trees, thickets, and forests, good and bad people, good and bad dharmas, the heavens and the hells, all the great seas, Sumeru, and all mountains, all are contained within emptiness. The emptiness of the nature of worldly men is also like this. Good knowing advisors, the ability of one's own nature to contain the 10,000 dharmas is what is meant by great. The myriad dharmas are within the nature of all people. If you regard all people, the bad as well as the good, without grasping or rejecting, without producing a defiling attachment, your mind will be like empty space. Therefore it is said to be great, Maha. Good knowing advisors, the mouth of the confused person speaks, but the mind of the wise person practices. There are deluded men who sit still with empty minds, vainly thinking of nothing and declaring that to be something great. One should not speak with these people because of their deviant views. Good knowing advisors, the capacity of the mind is vast and great, encompassing the Dharma realm. Its function is to understand clearly and distinctly. Its correct function is to know all. All is one is all. Coming and going freely, the mind's substance is unobstructed. That is prajna. Good knowing advisors, all prajna wisdom is produced from one's own nature, it does not enter from the outside. Using the intellect correctly is called the natural function of one's true nature. One truth is all truth. The mind has the capacity for great things, and is not meant for practicing petty ways. Do not talk about emptiness with your mouth all day and in your mind fail to cultivate the conduct that you talk of. That would be like a common person calling himself the king of a country, which cannot be. People like that are not my disciples. Good knowing advisors, what is meant by prajna? Prajna in our language means wisdom. Everywhere and at all times, in thought after thought, remain undeluded and practice wisdom constantly, that is prajna conduct. Prajna is cut off by a single deluded thought. By one wise thought, prajna is produced. Worldly men, deluded and confused, do not see prajna. They speak of it with their mouths, but their minds are always deluded. They constantly say of themselves, I cultivate prajna. And though they continually speak of emptiness, they are unaware of true emptiness. Prajna, without form or mark, is just the wisdom mind. If thus explained, just this is prajna wisdom. What is meant by paramita? It is a Sanskrit word which in our language means arrived at the other shore, and is explained as apart from production and extinction. When one is attached to states of being, production and extinction arise like waves on water. That is what is meant by this shore. To be apart from states of being, with no production or extinction, is to be like freely flowing water. That is what is meant by the other shore. Therefore it is called paramita. Good knowing advisors, deluded people recite with their mouths, but while they recite they live in falsehood and in error. When there is practice in every thought, that is the true nature. You should understand this dharma, which is the prajna dharma, and cultivate this conduct, which is the prajna conduct. Not to cultivate is to be a common person, but in a single thought of cultivation, you are equal to the Buddhas. Good knowing advisors, common people are Buddhas and affliction is Bodhi. Past thoughts deluded are the thoughts of a common person. Future thoughts enlightened are the thoughts of a Buddha. Past thoughts attached to states of being are afflictions, and future thoughts separate from states of being are Bodhi. Good knowing advisors, Maha Prajna Paramita is the most honored, the most supreme, the foremost. It does not stay, it does not come or go. All Buddhas of the three periods of time emerge from it. You should use great wisdom to destroy affliction, defilement, and the 5 skandhik heaps. With such cultivation as that you will certainly realize the Buddha way, transforming the 3 poisons into morality, concentration, and wisdom. Good knowing advisors, my Dharma door produces 84,000 wisdoms from the one prajna. Why? Because worldly people have 84,000 kinds of defilement. In the absence of defilement, wisdom is always present, since it is not separate from the self-nature. Understand that this Dharma is just no thought, nor remembrance, non-attachment, and the non-production of falsehood and error. Use your own true suchness nature, and, by means of wisdom, contemplate and illuminate all dharmas without grasping or rejecting them. That is to see one's own nature and realize the Buddha way. Good knowing advisors, if you wish to enter the extremely deep Dharma realm and the Prajna Samadhi, you must cultivate the practice of Prajna. Hold and recite the Diamond Prajna Sutra, and that way you will see your own nature. You should know that the merit and virtue of the sutra is immeasurable, unbounded, and indescribable, as the sutra text itself clearly states. This Dharma door is the superior vehicle, taught for people of great wisdom and superior faculties. When people of limited faculties and wisdom hear it, their minds give rise to doubt. Why is that? Take for example the rain which the heavenly dragons shower on Jambudvipa. Cities and villages drift about in the flood like thorns and leaves. But if the rain falls on the great sea, its waters neither increase nor decrease. If people of the great vehicle, the most superior vehicle, hear the Diamond Sutra, their minds open up, awaken, and understand. They then know that their original nature itself possesses the wisdom of prajna. Because they themselves use this wisdom constantly to contemplate and illuminate, they do not rely on written words. Take for example the rain water. It does not come from the sky. The truth is that the dragons cause it to fall in order that all living beings, all plants and trees, all those with feeling and those without feeling may receive its moisture. In 100 streams it flows into the great sea and there unites in one substance. The wisdom of the prajna of the original nature of living beings acts the same way. Good knowing advisors, when people of limited faculties hear this sudden teaching, they are like the plants and trees with shallow roots which, washed away by the great rain, are unable to grow. But at the same time, the prajna wisdom which people of limited faculties possess is fundamentally no different from the prajna that men of great wisdom possess. Hearing this dharma, why do they not become enlightened? It is because the obstacle of their deviant views is a formidable one and the root of their afflictions is deep. It is like when thick clouds cover the sun, if the wind does not blow, the sunlight will not be visible. Prajna wisdom is itself neither great nor small. Living beings differ because their own minds are either confused or enlightened. Those of confused mind look outwardly to cultivate in search of the Buddha. Not having awakened to their self-nature yet, they have small roots. When you become enlightened to the sudden teaching, you do not grasp onto the cultivation of external things. When your own mind constantly gives rise to right views, afflictions and defilement can never stain you. That is what is meant by seeing your own nature. Good knowing advisors, the ability to cultivate the conduct of not dwelling inwardly or outwardly, of coming and going freely, of casting away the grasping mind, and of unobstructed penetration, is basically no different from the Prajna Sutra. Good knowing advisors, all sutras and writings of the great and small vehicles, the 12 divisions of sutras, have been devised because of people and established because of the nature of wisdom. If there were no people, the 10,000 dharmas would not exist. Therefore you should know that all dharmas are originally postulated because of people, and all sutras are spoken for their sakes. Some people are deluded and some are wise, the deluded are small people and the wise are great people. The deluded question the wise and the wise teach dharma to the deluded. When the deluded people suddenly awaken and understand, their minds open to enlightenment and they are no longer different from the wise. Good knowing advisors, unenlightened, the Buddha is a living being. At the time of a single enlightened thought, the living being is a Buddha. Therefore you should know that the 10,000 dharmas exist totally within your own mind. Why don't you, from within your own mind, suddenly see the true suchness of your original nature? The Bodhisattvashila Sutra says, our fundamental self-nature is clear and pure. If we recognize our own mind and see the nature, we shall all perfect the Buddha way. The Vimalakirti Nirdasa Sutra says, just then, suddenly regain your original mind. Good knowing advisors, when I was with the High Master Jen, I was enlightened as soon as I heard his words, and suddenly saw the true suchness of my own original nature. That is why I am spreading this method of teaching which leads students of the way to become enlightened suddenly to Bodhi as each contemplates his own mind and sees his own original nature. If you are unable to enlighten yourself, you must seek out a great good knowing advisor, one who understands the Dharma of the most superior vehicle and who will direct you to the right road. Such a good knowing advisor possesses great karmic conditions, which is to say that he will transform you and guide you and lead you to see your nature. It is because of the good knowing advisor that all wholesome dharmas can arise. All the Buddhas of the 3 periods of time, and the 12 divisions of sutra texts as well, exist within the nature of people, originally complete within them. If you are unable to enlighten yourself, you should seek out the instruction of a good knowing advisor who will lead you to see your nature. If you are one who enlightens himself, you need not seek a teacher outside. If you insist that it is necessary to seek a good knowing advisor in the hope of obtaining liberation, you are mistaken. Why? Within your own mind there is self-enlightenment which is a knowing advisor. But if you give rise to deviant confusion, false thoughts and perversions, although a good knowing advisor external to you instructs you, he cannot save you. If you give rise to genuine prajna contemplation and illumination, in the space of an instant all false thoughts are extinguished. If you recognize your self-nature, in a single moment of enlightenment you will arrive at the stage of a Buddha. Good knowing advisor, when you contemplate and illuminate with the wisdom which brightly penetrates within and without, you recognize your original mind. The recognition of your original mind is the original liberation. The attainment of liberation is the prajna samadhi, is no thought. What is meant by no thought? No thought means to view all dharmas with a mind undefiled by attachment. The function pervades all places but is nowhere attached. Merely purify your original mind and cause the six consciousnesses to go out the six gates, to be undefiled and unmixed among the six objects, to come and go freely and to penetrate without obstruction. That is the prajna samadhi and freedom and liberation, and it is called the practice of no thought. Not thinking of the 100 things and constantly causing your thought to be cut off is called dharma bondage and is an extremist view. Good knowing advisors, one who awakens to the no-thought dharma completely penetrates the 10,000 dharmas, one who awakens to the no-thought dharma sees all Buddha realms, one who awakens to the no-thought dharma arrives at the Buddha position. Good knowing advisors, those of future generations who obtain my dharma should take up this sudden teaching dharma door, and with those of like views and like practice they should vow to receive and uphold it as if serving the Buddhas. To the end of their lives they should not retreat, and they will certainly enter the holy position. In this way it should be transmitted from generation to generation. It is silently transmitted. Do not hide away the orthodox dharma and do not transmit it to those of different views and different practice who believe in other teachings, since it will harm them and ultimately be of no benefit. I fear that deluded people may misunderstand and slander this dharma door, and will cut off their nature which possesses the seed of Buddhahood for hundreds of ages and thousands of lifetimes. Good knowing advisors, I have a verse of no mark which you should all recite. Those at home and those who have left home should cultivate according to it. If you do not cultivate it, memorizing it will be of no use. Listen to my verse. With speech and mind both understood like the sun whose place is in space. Just spread the seeing the nature way. Appear in the world to destroy false doctrines. Dharma is neither sudden nor gradual. Delusion and awakening are slow and quick. But deluded people cannot comprehend this dharma door of seeing the nature. Although it is said in 10,000 ways, united, the principles return to one. In the dark dwelling of defilements, always produce the sunlight of wisdom. The deviant comes and affliction arrives. The right comes and affliction goes. The false and true both cast aside. In clear purity the state of no residue is attained. Bodhi is the original self-nature. Giving rise to a thought is wrong. The pure mind is within the false. Only the right is without the three obstructions. If people in the world practice the way, they are not hindered by anything. By constantly seeing their own transgressions, they are in accord with the way. Each kind of form has its own way, without hindering one another. Leaving the way to seek another way to the end of life is not to see the way. A frantic passage through a life will bring regret when it comes to its end. Should you wish for a vision of the true way, right practice is the way. If you don't have a mind for the way, you walk in darkness blind to the way. If you truly walk the way, you are blind to the faults of the world. If you attend to others' faults, your fault finding itself is wrong. Others' faults I do not treat as wrong. My faults are my own transgressions. Simply cast out the mind that finds fault. Once cast away, troubles are gone. When hate and love don't block the mind, stretch out both legs and then lie down. If you hope and intend to transform others, you must perfect expedient means. Don't cause them to have doubts, and then their self-nature will appear. The Buddha Dharma is here in the world. Enlightenment is not apart from the world. To search for Bodhi apart from the world is like looking for a hare with horns. Right views are transcendental. Deviant views are all mundane. Deviant and right completely destroyed. The Bodhi nature appears spontaneously. This verse is the sudden teaching. Also called the Great Dharma Boat. Here in confusion, pass through ages. In an instant's space, enlightenment. The Master said further, in the Ta Fan temple I have just now spoken the sudden teaching, making the universal. Vow that all living beings of the Dharma realm will see their nature and realize Buddhahood as they hear these words. Then among Magistrate Wei and the officials, Taoists, and lay people who heard what the Master said, there were none who did not awaken. Together they made obeisance and exclaimed with delight, good indeed. Who would have thought that Enlightenment Buddha would appear in the world? End chapter 2.